Hello my YouTube friends! Today I'm going to show you how to create this stinger transition for your OBS live streams using nothing but free software. If you don't know what a stinger is, it's a video file that's going to play when you're transitioning from one scene to another in OBS. It adds a lot more flair to your live streams, and I'll show you how to add it to OBS too, so don't worry, I got you covered. I've done this in the past using Adobe After Effects, but that costs cash, so I wanted to do it in Davinci Resolve, which is totally free. So let's get to it. If you're always looking for tools, tips, and tricks that can help make you a better YouTuber, subscribe to the channel and click that bell so you don't miss any new content. Davinci Resolve is an amazing free video editing software you can download in just a few minutes. It's really hard to believe how powerful it is, and you can pay to upgrade it and add more features. But everything I show you today is in the free version. There's a link in the description below if you want to check it out and follow along with me. Now let's jump into Resolve and get to work. Here I am in Davinci Resolve, and I'm just going to go down and create a new project, and I'm going to name this project OBS Stinger and click Create. I'm going to go up to File and select Project Settings. Here in Project Settings, I want to make sure that I am using the same resolution as I would be using in OBS. In my case, it's 1920 by 1080. Then I want to go down and set my timeline frame rate to my frame rate that I use in OBS, which in my case is 30 frames per second, but you might be using 60. And I'm going to set my playback frame rate at 30 frames per second as well. And then I'm going to click Save. Then I'm going to go into the editing tool and I'm going to right click on this media location and I'm going to create a new fusion composition. I'm going to set the duration for my fusion composition to 2 seconds because a stinger is very short. It doesn't need to be any longer than that. And I'm just going to name my clip. In this case, we'll call it Stinger. I'll make sure my frame rate is correct and click Create. Now I'm going to drag this into my timeline. And then I'm just gonna flip over here to Fusion. And you can see we just have this media out and we don't really need that right now. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna drag these backgrounds out into the thing. I'm gonna have 2 different colors. And my first background, I'm going to change the name here. And I can do that by right clicking and going to rename. I'm gonna call this one white. My second one, I can just select it and click F2 to rename it. I'm gonna call this one blue and click OK. I'm gonna go over here to the right hand side and I'm just gonna adjust the color on this one to make it blue. I'm gonna select the white one and do the same thing, adjust the color. So now we have basically white and blue boxes. I'm going to drag this mask out here and then I'm gonna just drag this up into the view panel. You can just drag any of these nodes into the view panel and it's gonna show you what's in those nodes. I'm gonna click this so it's just one view screen here. I don't need 2. So this is what we're looking at. The checkerboard area is part of the rectangle that makes up our mask. So I wanna angle that rectangle a little bit. And then I'm gonna grab these edges and drag our mask out. What I wanna do is cover the entire screen in blue. And there we go. Pretty simple so far. And I wanna just change this angle around. I want my corners to kind of be coming onto the screen and you'll understand what I'm talking about in a second. I think that looks pretty good. Now I'm going to set my playhead to 30 frames, which is exactly halfway through the animation. Now I'm going to go over here on the right hand side and where it says center, I'm just gonna click this little dot and that is going to add a keyframe there. This is saying this animation at frame 30, this is where it's going to be. Now notice I am actually animating the rectangle. And now I'm gonna move to frame 4 and I'm just gonna push my mask rectangle off the screen. And you see it automatically adds a keyframe there. So if I click play, up until 30 frames per second, it moves right to the center. So now I'm gonna go out and I'm gonna select, I think frame 56. And then I'm just going to move my rectangle off the screen again. And my rectangle, when I talk about it, that's just the mask. And there we go, when I click play, you can see this animates all the way across the screen. So we're already getting somewhere. Now I'm just going to connect that up to the white as well. And I'm gonna grab the white and drag it up here so you can see that looks exactly the same as our blue when I drag it into the viewport. So I can drag one on the left and one on the right. And you can see that that if we view each one of these nodes separately, they are basically exactly the same. It's just that one is white and one is blue. So what I want to do is combine these two. So in order to do that, I'm just going to grab this little knob and going to drag it on the white. And what that's basically saying is the blue is going to be on top of the white, and we get this merge node. I'm going to drag that there, and now you see the blue is on top of the white. You can't see the white because they're both the exact same size. So in order to fix that problem, I'm going to drag this transform in here, and I'm going to put it in between the rectangle and the white. So now when I select the transform, I can move the white just a little bit so we get that edge. And now when I click play, you can see there we go. We've got it dragging across. We've got that cool little white line there. That's exactly what we're looking for. So we've got the makings of our stinger right there. I'm just going to adjust this because the blue is on top of the white, and I don't want to forget that. Now next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a drop shadow. I'll move this little media out over here to the right. We're going to use that later. I'm going to grab the rectangle and the blue, and I'm going to Control C and then Control V and paste them again. And what I want to do is I want to create a little drop shadow of the blue on my stinger. So I'm going to select the blue and I'm going to make that black. And then in the copied rectangle, you can see now that's black. And I'm going to select my rectangle and I'm going to make a really soft edge. That looks pretty good. Now what I need to do is I need to put our black under the blue. So I'm going to take the blue and drag it up, and there we go. Now we've merged these, and then I'm going to merge that into this one. And so now what I could do is just use this transform that I put right in here, and I can move my drop shadow around a little bit. And let's see here. Pull this up, and there we go. We could see that the drop shadow is there. So we just have something that's not connected properly. So somehow our merge 2 is not connecting properly. So there we go. We remove that. Now we don't have our blue in there. So sometimes getting these nodes connected properly is a little bit of a challenge. There we go. Now we have the blue and white again, but we don't have our drop shadow. And we still have the drop shadow properly when I look at that through the viewport. So I'm going to disconnect that and put it here to that one. And there we go. Now that looks like it could be right. And there we go. So we just had it connected to the wrong entry point on the node. And once we connected it properly, now we can move that drop shadow around a little bit and make it look cleaner. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to adjust the soft edge on the rectangle, and then I'm going to move this transform back a little bit, and there we go. We got what looks like a pretty cool drop shadow. When I play that, you can see it animates across, does exactly what we're supposed to do. Now, I'm just going to let you know that when you're playing around with these nodes, getting the connections and all that stuff all routed right, well, it's a little bit of a process, especially on your first time. So just keep that in mind. You can drag and drop any of these nodes onto the viewer to see what that node is seeing. And just getting everything connected right is usually half the battle. So now what I'm going to do is I want to create the trailing edge white piece here. So I'm going to copy the rectangle, the transform, and the white box, and I'm going to paste them down here. And I want the regular white box. Now I'm going to add this into the merge right here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag this to here. Now I'm going to go up to our shadow box and I'm going to click on the transform, and I'm going to drag this a little bit this way and see if I can't stretch that shadow into the back as well. We don't need it to be too strong, and there we go. We have a little bit of a drop shadow there, and if I go back here, I just want to make sure the drop shadow on the front still looks good, and it does. So now we have a box with the full drop shadow. I'm going to adjust it a little more, and that looks really nice in the back, and it still looks pretty good in the front. So there we go. The basics of our stinger are correct. Now just make sure you go up and you save your project every once in a while. And there we go. That's what our stinger is going to look like at this point. So now I want to add an OBS logo over this, and you can use any logo you want. This could be your logo or any other thing. I'm just going to drag it and drop it in there, and I'm going to move this down to the bottom here of our node, and then I'm going to go ahead and grab this rectangle here, and I'm going to copy it, Control C, and paste it, Control V, connect it up to my OBS node, and there we go. So you can see the green is the box on the outside, and there's our OBS logo. And I'm going to add a transform in here, and I'm going to move the media to the transform, and I'm going to use the transform so I can resize my logo here. So I'm going gonna scale it down a little bit, and then I'm going to connect this up to the merge 4 here. So we are going to add it to this node right here, and let's see what we get here. Now if we add this, there we go. That's exactly what we're looking for. Now all we need to do is fix our rectangle so it properly masks out our OBS logo. So I'm gonna drag it out to here, and I'm gonna drag it down to here, and now we need to keyframe it up. So I'm going to move all the way down here and just see how badly it lines up or doesn't line up. And you can see it's not really lining up. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and just drag this so it's at the leading edge, and this is going to put a keyframe in there for our OBS logo. And I'm just gonna adjust these so they match up perfectly with the edges that we're looking at. And you can see in the timeline, you get these little white lines when you add a keyframe. And so I'm gonna move about every 2 frames, and I'm just gonna drag this to make sure it lines up. And now that you see what it's actually doing, you're getting a better idea. So we'll go another 2 keyframes, and we'll drag our mask again. And there we go. That's starting to look pretty good. That's what we want. We'll go another 2 keyframes, and we'll drag that mask again. And we're just kind of making sure that this is revealed properly. Now I could do it over the blue section if I wanted to, or the white. However, I wanted to place my box. Now I want to do it over the white because I think it adds kind of a cool effect. But you may decide that you want to do it over the other box, or you can try something completely different. I go back 2 more frames, and I drag my mask over that, and I go back 2 more frames. I'm just gonna make sure that this mask goes all the way off the screen. So I'm gonna go down to the 4th frame at this point, and I'm just gonna drag it off the screen. And you can see there is a little remnant of the white corner there, and we'll take care of that in a couple of minutes. But let's go and do the mask on the trailing edge now. So I'm gonna go all the way down here, and I'm just gonna line my box up at frame 41, and then move 2 more frames, and we're gonna line our box up again. And the more accurate you are, the better this is gonna look, so just keep that in mind. I'm gonna go 2 more frames and line my box up again. And every time we do this, it adds another keyframe for our mask, and we're gonna move it again 2 frames, and then line it up with the edge, and 2 more keyframes. Oh, we went 3 keyframes here. That'll work. We'll just line this up to the edge right here. And then we're gonna go all the way down to frame 56, and we're gonna drag this right off the screen to the tip there of the white. So there we go. Now we can see that our logo is functional, but we're trying to get rid of these little tips. So I'm gonna go and select the different rectangles to see if we can't see where our box is overlapping. And I actually think this might be it. So if I just drag this off a little bit, nope, that doesn't seem to be doing it. So I'm gonna undo that. Let's see if this one is. No, it doesn't look like it. Maybe this one. And you can see when you select these, it shows you which box is there. And look at the transforms. And none of these seem to be the culprit for the little white dot, but this one looks like it's the culprit. So I think if I just move this off to the left a little more, we can get rid of that little white dot. Let's play this animation once through so you can see what it looks like. And it does look choppy because it is caching while it's playing, but that's normal. It'll look fine. And once it rotates, you can see it looks pretty good. I'm gonna go all the way to the end on the right, and we still have that little white nubby. So I'm going to go ahead and just try to figure out which rectangle is causing it. And by rectangle, I mean mask. There it is. It's this one right here. So if I hit shift, I can zoom out a little bit if I hit shift and use my mouse, and we'll just move that. Now I'm gonna go over to the other side, and we're gonna remove the little nubby on the other side as well. You gotta make sure you grab the playhead. That's kind of important. And I don't think that's it. So I think it's this one right here. We're just gonna drag this off the screen a little bit. There we go. That fixes it. And now we might have to adjust just a little bit the edge of our box for our logo, because just changing the white transform on that last one just a little bit might have made it off sync. So I'm gonna go down here and select my mask for my logo, and I'm just gonna make sure that we line it up with the keyframes that already exist. And we're gonna make sure that these all work as intended. You can see there's a little bit of a gap there. I'm just gonna adjust this just a little bit. And like I said, the more accurate this is, the better it's going to look. It does go pretty fast, so you don't have to go crazy, but I like it to be lined up. And we'll go back here, and we'll adjust that, and one more here, and then we're gonna go over and make sure that the other side looks right. and that looks good. These look pretty good on this side, so it only seemed to have messed up the other side. Perfect. And I'm gonna save the project, and I'm gonna go ahead and click play, let it run through just to make sure that's what we're looking for. And everything looks to be working exactly the way we want it. And we have to go ahead and output that to media out. And this will connect it up so it's editable and all that stuff in the other features within Davinci Resolve. So now we take a look at that, and that's what's gonna be going to media out. That looks right, that's what we want. So I can go to edit, and now you can see here it is. Now you can add audio to your stingers, so I'm gonna just add this, just a little golf club sound that'll play in the middle to give our animation a little bit of audio. I'm gonna drag that over. You can only export one file, so I'm gonna select both clips and I'm gonna go to new compound clip. And this is gonna combine the video and audio into one clip, making it so that we can export this properly in Davinci Resolve. And you can name this whatever you want. I'm gonna call mine Compound Stinger and click create. And now we have audio along with our clip. All we have to do is export it. So we're gonna go over here on the bottom to the Deliver tab. And up here in the top left, you can put your file name in there. I'm just gonna call this one New Stinger. And you can browse to the location where you want your file. You wanna make sure individual clips is selected. Then the format is going to be QuickTime. The codec is gonna be uncompressed, and the type is going to be BGRA 8-bit. And the A is for alpha, which we do need. We wanna have those edges see-through so that this animates properly. And then you wanna make sure you have export alpha checked. And once you do all that, you can add it to the render queue. And over here on the right, that's the render queue. You just click Start Render. And this is gonna render out our clip, and there we go. Now, we need to make sure that this clip is usable in OBS. Now, you could use this in OBS, but you can see it's almost half a gig. That's massive. That is going to be a huge drain on what you're trying to do. So I'm gonna go and download this application. It's called Shutter Encoder. And the link's in the description if you wanna check it out. You just go here and you go to downloads, and you can donate whatever you wish, and this is a great program, so if you have the means, I highly recommend that you donate. You can get this for Windows or Mac, so just select the version that you want, and if you choose to donate, it goes right to your PayPal, and you can put whatever you want in there. It's really easy to donate. If you do have the means, I recommend that you do. I'm gonna just drag this bar to the left and click the 64-bit install version, and it downloads down there in the bottom left-hand corner. I can just double click on it to open it, and select your language of choice, accept the agreement, and click next. Select where you want to install it to and click next, and then next. You can create a desktop shortcut and all that kind of stuff. And just next through this and click install, and this puts the Shutter Encoder on your machine. Next you want to click finish, and it will launch the Shutter Encoder. And here we are in the Shutter Encoder. I'm going to click browse, and I'm going to select the file that we just created. It's this new Stinger file right here, and open. Now under choose function, I'm going to go to output codecs, and I'm going to go ahead and select VP9. That's the codec we need. You can see the extension is WebM, which is totally compatible with OBS. Up in the bitrate adjustments, I want to make sure that I have max quality. Don't worry about the size. This makes a very small file. And the other setting we need to change is in advanced features. We want to make sure that we enable the alpha channel. This is so we can use it in OBS and see through it. We can go over here and change our source to tell Shutter Encoder where we want to save the file to. So once we have everything all set up, all we have to do is click Start Function, and it will convert that gigantic MOV file to a very tiny but usable WebM file. And our clip is only about 2 seconds, so this doesn't take very long to process, maybe 30 seconds. And once it's finished, we can go in here and you see our new Stinger with the VP9 codec is very small. It's less than a megabyte. It's very tiny. So now we're gonna go into OBS and we're going to click this transitions and we're going to add a Stinger. I'm just gonna call it Stinger. We're gonna browse and we're going to select the VP9 that we just created. We're gonna click open. Then under transition point, we're gonna select frame. And we know that 30 frames per second, it's 2 seconds long, so frame 30 is the center. In audio monitoring, this clip does have audio, so when you do a transition, it's going to play to your audience. You can select monitor off, monitor only, mute output, which means your audience won't be able to hear it, which isn't what we want, or monitor and output, which will mean that you can hear it and your audience can hear it. Usually you'll probably set this to monitor off. You don't need to hear the sound every time it plays. It's mostly for effect for your audience, but you can also put it on monitor and output if you want to hear the audio. This audio fade style, there are two different ones, fade out to transition and then fade in, or crossfade. And if you fade out to the transition and fade in and you're talking over that, it's going to fade out and fade your audio in. If you select crossfade, it's just going to hold your audio from one scene to the next. And this is usually what you're going to want. So I recommend choosing crossfade here. Once you're finished, we can preview the transition to make sure that A changes to B while it's fully covering the screen. And if it does that, we can click OK and test it out. So I just have two video scenes loaded here, and I'm gonna switch from one scene to the next. And you can see our stinger transition is working absolutely perfectly. And man, it looks great. You can definitely see how powerful Davinci Resolve is. It's really hard to believe it's completely free. What software are you using to edit your videos? Let me know in the comments. And if you want to see how to create a stinger for OBS using Adobe After Effects, check this video out. And if you're always looking for tools, tips, and tricks to help make you a better YouTuber, subscribe to the channel. My name is Michael Fire Jr. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one.